Moonman A1. Very interesting fountain pen. Moonman finally went after a pilot, and I guess they did a copy or their own version of the Vanishing Point. I was actually quite intrigued about it, especially on this version without a clip. I already have two Vanishing Points, one with a steel nib and one with a 18K gold nib. And both of them, they have the clip. So I was pretty much interested in see if I have any, if I like better the no clip version. I know that a lot of people are modifying this fountain pen. I mean the pilot, the original Vanishing Point. They're modifying it in order to remove the clip, and well, that's more money to consider, right? And I didn't want to do that. Plus, for my grip, really the clip doesn't bother me. I actually kind of like it because my finger is resting on it. However, I wanted to see if I'm missing anything, see if I have a different experience with it. So I wanted to give it a try to see how it is. And not much of a difference, to be honest, in the way I hold it, at least. Anyway, so differences between them. Not a lot of differences. I mean, there are some slight differences, and not all the parts are perfectly interchangeable, but most of the fountain pen, it's pretty much the same. I'm gonna compare it a lot with the steel nib that I have, since I mean, I guess it's a fair comparison, steel nib versus steel nib. What should I start with? First of all, by look and size. The looks are fairly similar, as you might see. The sizes are more or less the same. I mean, from tip to toe, basically, it's exactly the same. The way they work, the spring feels exactly the same. The fit and finish, the version that I have on black, it's quite fingerprint magnet, but it's quite nice actually. Even though the middle part it's different from Pilot, it's still quite stylish. Stylish, I like it, and still has the Moonman logo on it. The trapdoor, this seems to work about the same. Not a huge difference in there. And they're about the same. Nibs are slightly different. The Pilot does have the breather hole, and the nib looks gold, but it's actually still, it's just colored in yellow. In hands, actually the Pilot feels a little bit lighter than the Moonman. One annoying thing that I noticed the first time I picked it up is that this roll stop doesn't actually align with the nib. It's a little bit off to the right, which is a little bit annoying, especially when I write. I usually tend to align the pen based on the clip that I have or something like that, and I tend to put it a little bit off to the left, and then I realize and move it to the right. And it's not a big deal, but it's there. Other things that I noticed about the fountain pen, when you unscrew it, basically the bottom part is connected to, well, the bottom part. However, on the Pilot, obviously you have two rings. And somewhere in here is like a small lip, this, that actually goes inside the first section and kind of makes it like a seamless connection. Another thing that I noticed, the spring that it's inside the pilot is not as stiff, and at the same time when you remove the top part, the notch from the nib unit is still there. So this is very useful, especially when you put the nib unit back in order to put it up. You won't move this by mistake or have it misaligned somehow. This will always stay there and you don't have to fight with it. Connecting the cap is very easy, very smooth. With this, however, with the Moonman, not so much. Basically, when you open it, he actually pushes this back, and the nib unit is not sitting there in the slot anymore. It actually, and you can easily misalign it. And you have to be careful when you put it back in here. You actually have to make sure it's aligned, and then very gently push, and then you kind of have to fight with the spring. The spring on this pen, it's a little bit stiffer than the other one. As for the nib units, they're pretty much the same. Like size-wise, it's tip to toe again. It's exactly the same. The actual nibs, kind of the same length. On the Moonman, you have stamp Moonman and EF for extra fine. That's the version that I got. And on a Pilot, you'll have Pilot M for medium, and then 716 stamped. On the underside, though, there are some differences. The Pilot, as you can see, has tabs for the full length of this part where the nib is catching onto the feed. However, the Moonman has 4 little tabs. Another thing that I'm not sure if I'll be able to show it is that the Moonman, where the tabs are holding onto the feed, it actually has like a groove. So I don't think you can just slide out the nib. You actually have to pry off these little tabs. And that you might get into the chance of actually bending and ripping those tabs. So not a good idea to try and remove that nib. For the Pilot, it doesn't seem like you have that groove, so there is a chance that you might actually be able to slide out this nib. I didn't try it. I'm just assuming you might be able to. Another thing that I noticed is that the Pilot feed, it's actually thinner than the Moonman feed, especially here at the base. This seems to be not as girthy as the Moonman. Or it could be just by the way the nib is designed. Seems like the nib is kind of curving on the Pilot, so it might give you the impression it's smaller. But visually it seems to be smaller. However, I could be wrong, because the nib actually curves around the feed on the Pilot, while on the Moonman it's actually just a strip, doesn't curve around it. Other than that, the filling hole is pretty much the same. The materials that are made of seems to be the same. Just one Pilot seems to be a little bit more polished than the other one, but not a big difference. The other huge difference that a lot of people were kind of sort of excited about it, I guess, was the converters. They're both pretty much the same length, and they're both holding exactly the same ink capacity. As you see from the pilot converter, it's pretty much the piston goes a little bit higher, while the piston on the Moonman will rest somewhere here. And they travel the same kind of amount. Amount of space. With the Moonman, you don't get those little balls inside. So if you're using fountain pens, ink that has all kind of stuff in it, you might have issues mixing the ink after a while. However, I guess doesn't stop you anything from putting a little ball in there. Another good thing about the Moonman converter is that it's actually serviceable. You can actually remove this very easily screwed in. The pilot, I tried to remove this band, but it just spins, so I guess it probably needs to put more force in it, or I'm not sure if he has like a small tab that holds it in here. I didn't try too hard to remove it, but even if you can remove it, I guess this is a little bit more harder to service than this. Other than that, I think they hold the same amount of ink. They do hold the same amount of ink, and if there's any differences, they're very small. I don't see a benefit over either or, just a matter of preference. And yes, you can actually put the pilot converter into the Moonman unit and the other way around. So those parts are definitely interchangeable. What I do notice is that the Moonman is a much more tighter fit on the pilot. And also I noticed that once you fully insert it, the spacing in here it's even tighter. It doesn't actually touch, but it's definitely a tighter fit in there. And the pilot converter on the Moonman, it's a little bit looser. Not by much. I think it was still holding. Can you switch the nib units between the pens? Let's try it out. So, pilot nib unit. It's gonna go inside the Moonman pen. Again, you have to pay attention here. Okay. And yeah, seems to work without a problem. There you go. Pilot nib in a Moonman fountain pen. And the other way around as well. You can put the Moonman. And again, not an issue. They're pretty much the same. One thing though that I don't recommend, and I've seen some people that were saying it's okay to do that, but I'm not sure how safe it is. Because, I'll show you in a second. So I'm gonna put back the Moonman unit into the Moonman pen and pilot back into the pilot. But what I will do is actually switch the top sides, right? And see what happens. The fit is not that great. It's okay, but not that great. However, you'll notice that the nib actually doesn't come all the way out anymore. So there are some differences between the exterior parts of the pen. I wouldn't combine them like this. And if you go the other way around, this is the part that I really wouldn't recommend. What happens is, well, the fit and finish in there is not the greatest anymore. There seems to be like a gap in there. And at the same time, this won't align. And the nib unit comes out much more. You can actually see the stamping while before you could only see the breather hole a little bit. So, and also the tension on the spring gets harder. You feel like things are much more in tension, and I'm not sure how good it is for the life of the components inside. Might be not a problem, but I still wouldn't recommend to interchange the actual exterior parts. It's okay to crisscross the nib units, but not the outside parts. Well, other things that I noticed is pilot fit and finish. It's much better. The threads are really nice, really smooth. Even when you glide your hand across them, they're not as sharp. I mean, they're still at the edges here, but they seems to be a little bit smoother. Oh. For the Moonman, it seems to be a little bit sharper. I mean, still smooth, but just a little bit sharper. Okay, what about the nib? Well, the nib on both of them, this is an actual medium on the pilot that I have. However, just to show you, there are small differences in how they feel on the paper. If you look at the pilot nib, hopefully I'll get it in focus. Come on, okay. There is some bounce to the nib. There you go, come on, you can do it. There you go. So there is some bounce on the nib. So as you write, for longer periods of time, this probably will be much more pleasant because you won't feel the paper as much because of that small bounce. The Moonman pen nib, there is no bounce. It's stiff as a nail. The only part that moves is the entire nib unit, or like no bounce to it. Oh, and just for comparison, if we're going for the the 18K nib unit on the pilot, this actually bounces a little bit more than the steel nib, and at the same time it actually flexes like just a little bit, enough to actually give you a little bit of line variation. Anyway, and yes, you can move the nib unit from this one into the Moonman as well without a problem. That's up to you if you want to do it. That's about it. I don't see any other big differences between them. They seem to function pretty much the same. The balance is slightly different between the pens. For example, on the Moonman, it's somewhere in there. And on the Pilot, it's somewhere in there. So they're fairly the same. Not a big difference. Anyway, I'm gonna try and ink it up, see how it is, do a small writing test just to get a feeling of it, and then I'm actually going to do a drawing, like usually, a small sketch. The ink that I want to use today actually is platinum carbon ink. It's actually one of my favorites. I wanted to test out something compared with the Noodler's black ink. Okay. How do you ink up this fountain pen? I heard a lot of, and the Pilot as well, I heard a lot of horror stories. Don't dip this in there. Do not, just don't. You actually have to open up the pen, remove the nib unit, and this is what you're gonna put inside the ink. Your ink bottle. Converter moves very nicely. And as I was saying this, actually this opened up on me. Huh. Okay, so don't hold it on this. Hold it lower. Doesn't seem like it's getting full. There's still ink. It's looking at the window. Seems like the ink, it's somewhere at this level. Okay, I'm gonna risk it. Let me clean it a little bit. Sorry, I was cleaning it off camera. Okay, gonna risk it. Okay, be careful, you gotta go. So there is a little bit of ink, okay? But you get a little bit of air as well, because as soon as you put it this way, you don't actually see the ink in here. So it doesn't fill up all the way. Anyway, let me put it back in. Actually, let me clean this. I don't want ink inside. Just trying to see. I'm hoping I'm not gonna get any ink on the feed, so this way it doesn't get inside the pen. Especially on that trapdoor mechanism. Because I'm not sure how it's gonna react with it. Cool. One quick thing that I wanted to test, it's actually the ink. I noticed with Noodler's ink that when I have overlap like this, when the ink dries out, you can actually see the lines between the overlaps. I wanted to see if the carbon black ink does the same on this paper. I still have my a little bit of ink in my Shepherd from last time. One weird thing that I noticed with the Schaefer, I did 2 sketches with it. One, the one that I had in camera, and another one off camera. And I noticed that the nib actually started to wiggle even more, even at lighter pressure, which is kind of annoying. Anyway. Oh, it's okay. So kind of the same. Anyway, how does the knee feel? The knee is actually pretty smooth. I like it. Nothing wrong with it. It's very wet actually, which I'm not sure I like it that much, especially for drawing. I mean, it might be good to fill in stuff, but this is definitely not an extra fine. I mean, my medium on the Pilot. This one, it's finer than this. This is very wet. Should be interesting. Reverse. Okay, reverse it's a little bit thinner, so I probably use it more on reverse. Probably. But yeah, has no issues writing so far. Alright, no ink leakage so far. So, I'm gonna go through a quick sketch, see how things are going. I apologize, this video probably will be a little bit too long. I see it's already around 28 minutes. I guess making the compare between the pens takes a while. This is supposed to be some leaves growing inside a hollow tree. I have a lot of black that I have to fill in. This should be interesting, but based on what I've seen, I don't think it should be any issues for a fountain pen to fill in this part. And then when I'm gonna draw the veins on the leaves should be interesting, because I got the extra fine because I was looking to do extra fine lines, but based on what I see, probably that's not what I'm gonna get. Anyway, feel free to skip over the next step to the conclusion if you want to by following the links below in the description, and jump through the video as you feel free. Thanks. All right, and I am back. I am back with this crazy, beautiful mess. I enjoy sometimes going crazy, just drawing lines and making a mess. Doesn't have to be pretty, you just have to enjoy it, I guess. Anyway, what about the fountain pen? Well, the fountain pen actually worked very well. I had absolutely no issues with it. I had no skips, I had no drips. I checked it just to see how much ink I still have. Not much left. Could probably do another small sketch. The nib unit, the feed, I don't see anything wrong with it. For me, at least, there was nothing wrong with it. I can't, I can't say anything much about it other than, yeah, it's as good as it is. The only disappointing part is that, well, it does says extra fine on this, which is not. This is more of a medium. I mean, the pilot medium is more of a fine line than this extra fine nib. There you go. That's the annoying part. If I have to check against lines, this extra fine. So this is a 0.5. This is a 0.35. And this is a 0.70. And this is the extra fine Moonman. That's not extra fine. That's close to this, which is the 0.70, maybe 0.6 or something like that. So not what I wanted, that's for sure. Am I gonna use it? Not with this nib, most probably. Am I gonna buy another one? Probably not, to be honest. Not at the prices that they're going for right about now. When I bought it, I got it for around $37 Canadians, and I think the price is kind of almost doubled. I've seen it right now, they kind of sell for around 57 to $60 on AliExpress. That's way more than I would be willing to pay for. At this price, I might as well just go for the actual pilot with a vanishing point with the metal nib. I mean, not metal, I mean stainless steel nib. So, yeah, it's a nice pen. Who should buy this one? I mean, I know there are a lot of people that don't really like the clip on the vanishing point, and because of that, they don't buy it. They don't, or at least they didn't jump on it. So for those people, this version with auto clip will probably be perfect. You'll probably enjoy this. Um, Other than that, I don't see the point of buying the Moonman out for the price. It is lower than Pilot, but the build quality is still not there. And at the same time, um, consider I've been reading a lot of reviews with people having issues with this pen. People basically saying that their nib dries. One thing that I notice is somehow I have ink on the feed, so most probably I have ink on the trap door. I made sure I cleaned this, but somehow ink still got there. So this might be because of the nib. From the nib gets onto the trap door, and from the trap door gets onto the feed. And I'm not sure how well it will stand over time, considering ink can actually rust metal, right? I've seen other people, they buying the fountain pen, and then they buy pilot nib units to put in this pen. I guess that's one way. Again, if you buy the version without a clip, if you would buy the version with the clip, I don't see the point of it, because you might as well just buy the pilot at this price. Unless the prices are gonna go down again. So let's say if the prices are gonna go down around $30, I might get another one. But then again, I don't trust these nibs now, so I wanted an extra fine. I doubt they have anything else that it's more extra fine than this. So in that case, I obviously still want a pilot nib unit. But if I buy the pilot nib unit, why not just buy the pilot vanishing point? So it's a nice pen though. I like it. I must admit I do like it. Since I do have it, I might end up buying an extra pilot nib unit just to replace the one that it's in here. So this way I can actually have an extra fine and use it. But I don't see myself buying another one. Let's put it that way. I mean, if you want it, if you like it, obviously go ahead. It's completely up to you. I'm just talking for myself, what I would do. Also, when it comes to options, as in feel and look, you get way more options from Pilot anyway. True, extremely expensive, some of them, but you do have more options. Overall, I do like it. I have nothing against it. I'm happy it's on the market. I'm a little bit sad it didn't stay at the price that it was originally introduced, but I guess the hype pretty much skyrocket the price. Hopefully, in time, it will go back down. I might get another one if it does. If not, I'm happy with the pilots that I already have. If you want it, buy it. Absolutely nothing wrong with it as far as I can tell. I don't know how well will last over time. I mean, doesn't have the history of pilot yet. We will only know in time. Which brings a very interesting point. These fountain pens, I mean, in the end, they are pretty much, how should I say, they barely introduced them, right? And they're new on the market. Pilot has been around for decades, basically. And they've been improving the vanishing point over time a lot. The question is, will Moonman come up with a version 2 that will improve upon it? I don't know. Moonman doesn't really have a lot of history of reintroducing or continuing one specific lineup of fountain pens and keep it for years and improves on it. They keep on switching and copying and introducing other fountain pens. So the question is, for how long they're gonna keep this on the market? How many of them they'll make? Is there gonna be a version 2? Is this gonna be built and made for decades as the Vanishing Point was made? Only time can tell. So far, sure, buy it. Nothing wrong with it. I bought one. Why wouldn't you buy one, right? I like it. It draws lines. I'm sure you can use it writing. I mean, I did all this mess with one feel. I can only imagine how long it will last you this for writing, and no issues with it. Anyway, I think this is gonna be one of my longest videos so far, and I apologize for this. It's just I kind of got into it. I hope you enjoy it. If you have any questions, do ask. I'll try and answer them as much as I can. And thank you for watching. I'll see you in next video. Have a good day.